Hello again, welcome to part 3 of this video set on how to make a image gallery. So we've got our web page set up, we've got the images loaded, we've got the CSS, and I mean this is quite a nice looking gallery at the minute, but what we want to do is to give the end user the option to make these bigger. So what we're going to do is add in some JavaScript to perform that function for us. And on all of these images previously, we've created an on-click event, which refers to a function called myFunction, and we've not made that yet. So we're going to go ahead and make that function, and we're going to actually use JavaScript to do it. So we're going to, first of all, add in some script. I'm going to do what I did in the other web pages and just add some carriage returns underneath it. You don't need to add carriage returns because they won't do anything to the web page. It's just so it puts it in the middle of the screen. Hopefully makes it easier for you to read. So we're going to create a script, and then we're going to create a function. And I said that function is going to be called myFunction. And we're going to put images in there, and then we're going to write the function out. So we're going to create a variable called going to make a variable called expand_img, which, as you can see, we've also referenced up here, and we're going to actually reference that using document get element by ID. I'm going to call expanded image for that. Make a second var, and we're going to call that img text, and we're going to do a pretty similar thing here. Okay, so basically when we've got image ID here, that these two are going to be linked, and this div is going to be linked down here. Okay, so when we call this, it's going to find, or the var is going, the expand image is going to be the image itself, and the text is going to be the alt tag. Expand img.src Sorry, that shouldn't have a dot in the middle of it. img text parent element dot style dot display block, and that's it. So there's not a huge amount of JavaScript there, but basically we're taking the source code from these. Okay, see where we've got the myFunction here. When you're clicking on it, you're making this go into here, basically. Sorry, here, and therefore it's now going to be displaying here much bigger. So, and rather than being 25% size, it's going to be 100% size. And this is where, when I run it, it's not going to load. Let's see. I need to go into the right version of Image Gallery, and there we are, loaded. Hallelujah! And it's massive. I mean, it's the size of the image. is absolutely massive. So you may want to decide whether you actually want the image to be that big or not. I must have made an error in the CSS because it wasn't displaying quite like that before. But yeah, bear with me. I'm going to see if I've made an error. The answer to that is yes, I had, and actually it was something that I'd done in the last video rather than the JavaScript itself. So I had an equals sign here. That's what the code was like before, and I should have had a colon. So you wouldn't just need to change that so it matches all these other ones here. And the impact of that is now that the image now takes up much less space. It takes up the page width rather than anything else. Although, curiously, I can't see my other bits. Right, so I'm going to make an admission that I have fixed it in terms of it now does everything that it should do. However, I don't necessarily know what has been changed. So I basically copied and pasted my CSS. So the issue is in the CSS, and I copied and pasted it over from what I did in my earlier test. And now it's working fine. But the problem is that I've saved over my previous code. So I can't actually compare back to what I had previously, which is a schoolboy error, I suppose you could say. However, I will show you the finished code so that you can do what you can have a look over your code and see if you can spot the error. I mean, it's quite good practice, to be brutally honest, for you guys, because ultimately this is what happens in industry. And I've just kind of shown you some examples that even people that have been doing this for many years can make an error with this. But you can see that ultimately the finished product, I suppose you can say, is you have the you've got the 4 images at the top that you can cycle between. You've got a nice little rollover effect. You've got a button at the top where you can click off the button, and you may or may not be able to see, you've got a little bit of text down the bottom where your alt text is displayed, which is the image text here. Now, obviously, you can make these big images as big and small as you want in the long run. If you don't want them to be, and even if you don't want your image gallery to be this size, you can resize it. And in fact, I'm going to do that in a minute because I want to show you how to add another picture into the fold. And it will make all of these smaller because ultimately you've got to make them percentage-wise smaller, so it will be height and width will get a little bit smaller. And I'll show you the changed CSS now. So I said I don't know exactly what I've done that has changed the CSS. I mean, it would be maybe something like a semicolon somewhere, or maybe a line of text that I missed out initially, but I literally copied and pasted my example that I did earlier, and that has made, and then I saved over it, so I don't know exactly why or what has changed. I mean, the font family is reverted to what I had originally. I mean, I can change it back to what I had in the example. It's not going to change anything. Or I hope it's not going to change anything. I can't imagine it would. No, good. So it's reasonably good practice for you guys to have a look at. To be honest, but let's add another image in there. So I've got a fifth image. For some reason that was really weird. It wasn't opening anyway. I have a fifth image here, image 5, and it's a leopard. That very satisfyingly hissed at my father when it went under our Jeep, and I was a little bit worried, I must admit, that it was going to climb into the tube, which would have been interesting. Mind you, leopards are not the most biggest of the cats. I'd be more worried if it was a lion, because wild lions are massive. Okay, so all I've done to add a fifth image is I've copied and pasted the line above, and I've added another line underneath, or another image underneath here. So image 5.jpg, which is the leopard. Obviously, you'll put in whatever your image is called. You can see just how big my images are when I hover over it. So you will want to make your images smaller. And then when I go in here, literally the only thing I'm going to need to change is this width here. So rather than being 25%, I now want it to be a fifth of 100, which of course is 20. And you'll want this to be representative of however many images you have. So if you have 10 images, you're probably going to have it at 10%. But for me, it's going to be 20 because I have my 5 images here. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to save it, and then I should be able to just refresh, and I have my fifth image available here. It's a very beautiful cat, I must say. So yeah, I mean, that is a nice image gallery. It contains JavaScript, it contains HTML, it contains CSS. I've shown you that making errors is common, and hopefully you guys will be able to use this. And if you have 6 images, you need to adapt it. If you have 7, you can put them in there, and just make whatever you need out of them. If you need to make these main images smaller, you can go into Photoshop and you can make you can resize your image to make it smaller, or you don't need to use Photoshop, you can use Paint or GIMP or whatever, and fingers crossed you'll be able to put that into action. Well, I hope you've enjoyed, or at least it's been useful. If not, maybe enjoyed is the right word. This video set. It obviously is the type of thing that will take your website really to the next level, because a static website, maybe with a video which is embedded from YouTube, is relatively nice. But this sort of thing, a nice image gallery, really does improve things. And I mean, this, with the best one in the world, is still a relatively basic one. You want, if you include something like a jQuery, which is obviously not needed for the unit, but if you include something like a jQuery, you can have some really nice effects with image galleries. But ultimately, it's not something that right now you need. But you could always have a look at that. But yeah, have a go and see where you can go with this. Thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully I will see you guys all soon. And hopefully it has been of some kind of use for you guys, and you can put it into action. So yeah, take care in these times, and good luck.